Today, we're jumping right into what happens after a market has a massive crash. And we're not talking about the noisy, chaotic freefall. We're talking about the strange, eerie silence that comes next, when an entire industry just grinds to a halt. So, this is the number that just rocked the market, a 38% crash in the price of silver. I mean, that is historic. It's the kind of event that sends speculators scrambling and puts the entire precious metals world on red alert. But what happened in the days that followed was, honestly, even weirder. You'd expect total chaos, right? Panic selling, phones ringing off the hook. But instead, there was just this quiet. The buyers disappeared. The dealers went dark. The market just went silent.
And that's really the core question we're digging into today. We're going to use an incredible first-hand report from a coin show in Kent, Washington, to see what it looks like on the ground when a market doesn't just crash, but completely freezes over.
Okay, so let's dive right in. The first major takeaway: the market was in an absolute state of shock. Our source goes to this coin show right after the crash, really trying to take the pulse of the industry, but what he found was, well, it didn't have one. This was basically the sign on every dealer's table. Over and over, the same message. Nope, not buying. The confidence had just completely evaporated. Nobody, and I mean nobody, was willing to take a risk on new inventory when the price was swinging so wildly.
And this really puts a number on that feeling. A whopping 80% of the dealers there were completely out of the silver market. Done. And that other 20%? You know, the ones who said they were still buying? Well, as we're about to see, that word buying came with some pretty serious strings attached.
So that brings us to the bullion market, which was basically frozen solid. Let's take a closer look at that tiny fraction of dealers who were still, open for business. Because what they were offering tells you everything you need to know about how broken the system was. So on the floor, you basically had three types of offers. The first one sounded way too good to be true, and let's be real, it probably wasn't a real offer. The second one was at least honest, but man was it brutal. A massive discount of 12% or more below the already crashed price. That screams liquidity crisis. But it's the third offer that's really terrifying. Go ahead and ship us your silver now, and we'll pay you later, maybe in a few weeks, maybe longer.
And that third offer is a perfect textbook example of this right here: counterparty risk. In a normal, healthy market, you hand over the goods, you get paid. Simple. But here, sellers were being asked to take on 100% of the risk, to just send their valuable assets into a void with nothing more than a promise of payment down the road. It's a deal nobody in their right mind wants to take.
And what did all this lead to? Well, this. Even with a few of these sketchy offers floating around, the number of actual completed silver bullion transactions that were seen was a big fat zero. The market wasn't slow, it wasn't struggling, it was a block of ice. But, and this is a huge but, here is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Because get this, under the very same roof, there was a whole other market that was, well, it was humming along just fine. While the price-obsessed bullion market was frozen, the market for collectible coins, what we call numismatics, was completely stable. So how is that even possible, right? How can one side of the room be a total disaster zone while the other side is just business as usual? Well, the answer comes down to what it is you're actually buying. And the key is this idea of a collectability premium. Think of it this way. It's all the value that has absolutely nothing to do with how much the silver weighs. It's value that comes from how rare something is, its condition, its history, the story it tells. And that premium, it acts like a powerful shield against the wild swings of the raw commodity price. So what did this actually look like on the floor? It meant that beautiful, high-grade classic coins, rare certified pieces, special mint issues, all of them were trading at the same prices they were before the crash. Their value wasn't chained to that crazy fluctuating spot price. It was anchored in something much more stable, their scarcity and their story. This whole crisis, it really drew a line in the sand. And not just between different types of silver, but between the kinds of people who own them. It all boiled down to your reason for being in the market in the first place.
I mean, just look at the difference here. On one hand, you've got the speculator. They jumped in back in January, chasing the hype at over $120 an ounce, and now they are just getting crushed, deeply underwater. But then you have the long-term holder, who bought maybe a year ago at $30. They're still sitting on a nice profit. And the collector?
Their rare coins are rock solid, their value totally insulated from all the panic.
So when you boil it all down, this whole event really forced a huge question on everyone. When you buy a precious metal, what are you really holding? Is it just a ticker symbol, a number on a screen, or is it something more tangible?
There's a quote from the report that just hits the nail on the head. For the collectors in that room, the answer was obvious. The metal was just the canvas. The real asset they were buying and selling was the history, the rarity, the story. And in a crisis, that's the value that held firm.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. When things go sideways and the market just stops, what actually proves to be more valuable? A fluctuating price that can literally vanish overnight, or a unique story that's already lasted for generations? I think this crash gave us a pretty clear answer to that, don't you?